Welcome to week 4. All right, as we approach the halfway point, I want to encourage you to stay focused. We got a lot of ground to cover and a whole lot to learn. This week we're going to study the kissing cousin to last week's topic, which was public relations. We're going to shift focus a little bit and talk about advertising and marketing. When I was the director of public affairs or public relations for Navy Recruiting Command, I was right across the hallway from the director of marketing and advertising. And we worked well together, thankfully. And this person described our relationship as kind of swimming in the same pool. And instead of being focused on those lane markers up top, we looked at the bottom. And so sometimes, while we tried to stay in our own lane, it was okay to kind of merge into each other's lane as long as we were both focused on the same goal. And I think that kind of relationship, that two sides to the same coin between marketing and advertising and public relations, is very helpful. In some organizations, you'll even find them under the same directorate. We're not going to spend too much time delving into that, but it does play a key role when you think about social media. So I'll again refer back to my time at Recruiting Command, because that's the only command in the Navy and in the military period that will have a marketing and advertising function. And so the marketing and advertising had their own social media schedule, their own calendar, their own priorities, all that, as opposed to where we focused our social media efforts, right? And so it was very important for us to work together so that we had a consistent message and didn't, conflict with one another, of course, which that very rarely happened, but we also didn't want to duplicate efforts. Okay, so when we talk about marketing and advertising, our authors kind of take this approach where they turn the marketing upside down, right? Instead of marketing that meets the needs of the company, you use social media to meet the needs and the desires of the customer. The idea is that there needs to be a long-term trust and maybe even kinship between your organization and your customers. So if you think about it, this is probably good advice for any marketing or strategic communication campaign. What's different about social media is that it gives us a great way to enhance the relationship because there's more of a two-way interactive communication. Think about it. Before we had social media, I would put out a news release. I might send out an email. Even before we had email, I might actually, fax something or mail it. There were other ways to get that information out. Regardless of how we did it, it was one way, right? Whereas today, when I post something on Twitter from our command page, we get responses almost immediately, right? If I tweet out something or we post something on Facebook, we get that two-way interaction. And that's phenomenal. That's priceless when it comes to effective communication. So our author also quotes Bayer 2013 that talks about a fundamental shift to traditional marketing ideas. Talk about this top-of-mind awareness. Some of you may be familiar with this. This is branding through a sustained level of marketing and messaging. It influences customers at the time of purchase. When they're walking down that aisle or about to pick up that phone or they're online, what is the top-of-mind awareness? What's the last thing they remember? There's also, secondly, frame-of-mind awareness. This is reaching potential customers when they are in active shopping and buying mode. You see this, whether you realize it or not, when you're online and you do a search and all of a sudden you start seeing ads for this. This is an example of the frame-of-mind awareness. Well, with social media, we're trying to cultivate what is known as friend-of-mine awareness. I'm trying to make you a friend of mine. Your prospective customers must consider you a friend if they're going to trust you, and they have to trust you if they're going to do business with you or in some way interact with your organization. Remember, there is a lot of competition for time, attention, and especially loyalty. All right. Our authors also do a very interesting shift and propose an alternative model for the 4 Ps of marketing. If you've taken a marketing class before, you know that the 4 Ps are product, placement, price, promotion. Well, our author flips that around and says that now with the use of social media, we have solutions, access, value, and education. They're similar, but not exactly the same, and they certainly rely on a little bit different strategy and quite a bit different tactics. Okay, I'm going to conclude this week's video by talking a little bit more about ROI, or return on investment. We talked about that in the previous week. It's important in all we do. And the nice thing about social media is that it gives us a lot of good data that we can rely upon to see how effective our communication plan is. There are lots of social media measures. We're not going to go into detail with that right now, but they tend to be secondary, maybe even indirect, right? I cannot tell you that if I were working for a company and I tweeted something out and we got, 30,000 retweets and 10 direct messages, that ultimately led to $6 million in sales or whatever, right? It's secondary, it's indirect. But it certainly helps us get a better focus on the benefits of social media. And we use that in context, If we try to tweet something on this day of the week at this time using this subject, how effective was that compared to a different time or a different subject? Or did we ask a question versus posting a picture? All these different things can help inform us as we shape our strategic strategy or our strategic communication. There are also new metrics that evaluate social media strategies, things that we are interested in terms of audience building, brand awareness, customer relations. Those have not changed. How we measure them have changed quite a bit, and we can learn more as we delve into the social media measurements. We'll talk more about that later in the course. In the meantime, you know what I'm going to say. Stay ahead with your assignments. Stay engaged in that discussion board. And most importantly, enjoy your time of learning.